Los Angeles was stunned when Denzel Washington, the legendary Hollywood star whose charisma has captivated the world for decades, was drawn into an explosive confrontation on the Rubin report. What was meant to be a friendly discussion about his new film turned into a public showdown that exposed a hidden side of Dave Rubin, the host whose provocative style finally met an unyielding opponent. In a bold display of arrogance, Rubin tried to belittle Washington, but the situation spiraled out of control as the truth began to surface. Insiders from the set describe a tense backstage atmosphere and a power play that shook the studio. If you thought you knew Dave Rubin, think again. Share your thoughts on X with number Rubin versus Denzel, as this story reveals what lies behind the facade of a 2025 media icon. According to sources close to the production, tensions were brewing even before the broadcast. Washington arrived at the Rubin Report studio in Los Angeles in high spirits, ready to discuss his latest blockbuster, which grossed $500 million at the box office. The crew described him as gracious. He shook hands with camera operators, joked with the makeup team, and thanked them for accommodating his schedule. But the mood shifted when Dave Rubin arrived minutes before filming. "Dave was off," said Sarah Lynn, a producer's assistant who wished to remain anonymous. He barely acknowledged Denzel and grumbled to the crew about rewriting the script for a star. This cold reception was the first sign of the storm to come. In 2025, with trust in media at a historic low of 31%, according to Pew polls, this scene was more than a show. It was a battle for voice. Denzel Washington sat in the guest chair, his posture radiating quiet strength, his gaze exuding wisdom and confidence. Across from him, Dave Rubin, the host, smiled with his signature smugness, holding the microphone like a weapon. Sarah Lynn, the assistant producer, stood in the shadows clutching her notepad, her heart pounding. Rubin leaned back in his chair, his smile sharp. "Denzel, welcome to the show. You're an icon, a legend. But let's start easy to warm up the crowd. Tell us, what's your take on early mornings? 5 a.m., when the world's still asleep? That's your thing, right? How do you stay in such great shape?" His tone was friendly, but his eyes searched for a crack, as if testing the star. X lit up. "Rubin starts soft. What's Denzel gonna say?" "Rubin vs. Denzel." Washington smiled, his voice deep and measured. "Early mornings? They keep you sharp, Dave. At 5 a.m., you're your own master. Your mind's clear, your day's yours. In a world where everyone wants to tell you who you are, that's rare freedom." The audience murmured, sensing the subtext. A post on X gained traction. "Denzel's already talking freedom? This is going to be fire." Denzel speaks. Rubin raised an eyebrow, his smile cooling. "Freedom, huh? Nice start. Your new film's breaking records, but you're not just an actor. You're a voice, an inspiration. Don't you think this whole cancel culture and censorship talk is a bit overblown? Free speech is alive. You're here on my show." He spread his arms as if the studio itself was proof. The audience laughed, some clapped. On X, a post read, "Rubin 1-0. Denzel hit back. S truth on Rubin." Washington leaned forward, his gaze sharpening. "Alive, Dave? Free speech isn't just sitting in your chair. It's when your voice isn't cut in the edit, when your words aren't buried for the right story. You know what I mean." The studio fell silent. Sarah Lynn gripped her notepad, her fingers trembling. She knew about editing decisions, had seen the truth buried. X exploded. "Denzel's throwing down. Denzel speaks." Rubin leaned in, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Denzel, you talk about freedom, but let's talk respect. You're a Hollywood star, an icon. You demand respect. From fans, from studios. But don't you think this culture of respect has gone too far? People get offended over everything, demanding censorship for their feelings. Maybe it's time to respect those who speak the truth, not those whining on X." His words landed like a slap, and the audience erupted in laughter and applause. X flared up. "Rubin goes hard. Denzel, what's your move?" "Rubin vs. Denzel." Washington clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with anger, but his voice remained low and controlled, like a storm approaching. Respect, Dave? You want to talk about respect? He paused, his gaze piercing Ruben, making him shift in his seat. Let me tell you about respect. An hour before this show in the green room, I saw you talk to a young intern, a kid probably working his first big set. You yelled at him, Dave, called him useless for spilling coffee by accident. You said, people like you will never make it if you don't learn to shut up. That's your respect? The studio froze. The audience gasped. Cameras zoomed in on Ruben's face, which flushed with shock. Sarah Lynn, in the shadows, covered her mouth. She was there, saw the 19-year-old intern, Tim, barely holding back tears after Ruben humiliated him in front of the crew. X erupted. Denzel exposes Ruben. Is this true? Jacques Denzel speaks. Posts surged. One clip of Denzel's speech hitting 3 million views in minutes. Ruben tried to recover, his voice shaking with strain. That's a lie, Denzel. I'm just tough on my team. This show's a machine, and everyone's got to run tight. You're twisting this to play the hero. But his words drowned in the audience's murmurs. Someone shouted, "Shame on you, Ruben." A new hashtag trended on X. Ruben humiliates, racking up 4 million posts. Washington stood from his chair, his figure towering under the studio lights. I'm not twisting anything, Dave. You want respect? It starts with how you treat those below you. You humiliate an intern, bury the truth for optics, then sit here preaching about freedom? Respect isn't your mic or your 3 million followers. It's principles. The audience roared with applause, cameras shaking with the intensity. Sarah Lynn, in the shadows, nodded, her eyes glistening. She knew Denzel was speaking the truth. On X, a clip of Washington's speech hit 7 million views in 10 minutes. The hashtag #sign Denzel speaks became a global trend, with posts digging into other stories about Ruben's backstage behavior. The studio tension peaked, and Ruben, sensing he was losing control, gripped his mic, preparing a counterattack. Ruben, red-faced, tried to strike back. Denzel, you're accusing me of humiliation? That's ridiculous. You're a star, you play the hero on screen, but here you're just a guest. Got any proof? Or is this just Hollywood drama for likes? His voice wavered, but the sarcasm held. The audience whispered, X flared. Ruben hits back. Denzel, show proof. Yak or truth, on Ruben. Washington slowly pulled out his phone, his movements calm but his eyes blazing. Proof, Dave? Here it is. He held up the screen, revealing an audio file sent by the intern, Tim, after the green room incident. Denzel played it, and Ruben's sharp, dismissive voice filled the studio. You useless kid, think you can just spill coffee and ruin my day? People like you don't belong on this set. The audience gasped. Cameras zoomed in on Ruben's stunned face. Sarah Lynn, caught off guard, shouted from the shadows, It's true! I was there. Her voice, though shaky, cut through the silence, and the audience erupted in applause. On X, Ruben exposed skyrocketed to 12 million posts in minutes. Denzel turned to Ruben, his voice thundering. You call that respect, Dave? You humiliate a kid just doing his job, then sit here preaching about freedom and truth? Your show's a sham, and I'm done with this sham. He tossed the mic onto the chair, the thud echoing through the studio. The audience roared. Someone yelled, Denzel's a legend. The clip of his words hit 15 million views on X and TikTok instantly, with #sign Denzel speaks dominating global trends. Ruben sat, stunned, his confidence crumbling like a house of cards. It wasn't like that, he stammered, but his words were drowned by applause. The show cut to commercial, but the battle was over. Backstage, Sarah Lynn, inspired by Denzel's courage, leaked a copy of the audio to an independent outlet, which published it alongside accounts from other staff about the toxic environment on the show. The next day, Ruben posted a weak apology on X. I strive for perfection, but it can come off harsh. Sorry for the misunderstanding. But the damage was done. Ruben Exposed hit 20 million posts, and a petition for media transparency gained 100,000 signatures in a day. Denzel, leaving the studio, became a symbol of principled resistance. His words were quoted in news outlets, and his stand inspired the young intern, Tim, to file a union complaint, sparking an investigation into the show's working conditions. The cultural landscape shifted. Media companies began reviewing their platform's ethics, and debates about respect and accountability in 2025 gained new momentum. Clips of Denzel's speech amassed 50 million views on TikTok and X, with his line, "Your show's a sham," becoming a viral meme. In 2025, as media fights for trust in the digital world amplifies every voice, one man reminded us that respect isn't a privilege of stars or hosts. It's the foundation of truth. Denzel Washington didn't just walk off a show. He exposed a system that humiliates for power. His courage showed that truth prevails when we stand for principles, not platforms. What's your truth? Share it on X with #DenzelSpeaks and say what you stand for.